Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Deep Dive.
Great to be back.
You've brought us some really interesting source material today, focusing specifically on Day 5, Part 2 from your postgraduate entrance exam vocab list. We are definitely ready to jump in.
Absolutely. Looks like a good set of words.
So what we're trying to do today, it's really more than just ticking off words on a list, right?
Oh, yeah.
We want you to really see these words, understand their personality almost, how they act in different sentences, how context is just, well, everything. It's like your secret weapon for really mastering vocabulary, especially for these big exams.
That's perfectly put. It's not about flashcards in isolation. It's about building connections, like a network. We'll look at real examples, sentences from past exams even, to help you get that intuitive feel.
Yeah, that gut feeling for how a word works.
Exactly. So you start to see the patterns, the nuances. It's about understanding, not just memorizing. Definitely. And hey, while we're diving in, if you find this helpful, if something clicks for you, please do hit that like button or subscribe, follow us wherever you're listening. It honestly really helps us know we're on the right track for you. And feel free, of course, share this with anyone else who might be wrestling with these same words.
Yeah, spread the knowledge.
Okay. So looking at this list, wow, it covers quite a bit. We've got words about ignoring things, feeling annoyed, deception, even joining groups. Quite the mix.
It is a good range of concepts.
Based on the material you sent over, where it feels like the natural place to start.
Well, let's just follow the flow in the source material.
Yeah.
It seems to group things thematically, starting with words around ignoring or, not paying attention. Things like ignore, ignorant, and neglect.
Okay, sounds like a plan. Ignoring and neglecting it is. Let's kick off with the verb ignore.
Right. Ignore. It's a verb. And the first example sentence you have is, I made a suggestion, but they chose to ignore it.
Chose to ignore. Okay, that immediately signals something, doesn't it? It wasn't like they didn't hear it.
Exactly. That chose to emphasizes a conscious decision. They were aware of the suggestion, but they actively decided not to acknowledge it or act on it. Volition is key there.
Right, a deliberate disregard. Okay, so how does that compare to the authentic sentence? The scientific community was so powerful that it could afford to ignore its critics.
This is a great example of context adding layers.
Yeah.
Could afford to ignore. Now, afford here isn't about money, obviously.
Right, not like affording a new car. So what does afford to mean in this context?
It means having the power, the position, the security to do something in this case. Ignore critics without suffering serious negative consequences. They were strong enough that the criticism couldn't really hurt them.
Got it. So it's about being in a position of strength. So powerful that part directly links their power to this ability to ignore. They didn't just choose to ignore. Their power enabled them to ignore without risk.
Precisely. Understanding afford to, in this sense, having the capacity or standing to act without detriment, is crucial. It tells you a lot about the status of that scientific community.
Yeah, that's a much richer meaning than just choosing. So in everyday use, you might ignore someone calling your name or ignore advice.
Or ignore a problem, maybe hoping it goes away. The core is always that refusal to acknowledge or take notice.
Okay, clear. So from the action of ignoring, we get the state of not knowing. That brings us to the adjective ignorant.
Yes, ignorant describes a lack of knowledge or information. The example is, at that time, I was ignorant of events going on elsewhere.
And that shows that really common pattern. Ignorant of something, meaning you lack knowledge about that specific thing.
Correct. Ignorant of. It's important to remember, though, that the primary meaning isn't necessarily negative. It just means lacking information. It doesn't automatically imply, being stupid or unwilling to learn.
Right. It's a description of a state.
Exactly. And the authentic sentence reinforces this. Darwin had a phrase to describe those ignorant of evolution.
So, again, ignorant of evolution, clearly talking about people who simply didn't know about the theory of evolution back then. Understanding that phrase ignorant of is key to grasping who Darwin was describing.
Absolutely. It pinpoints the group based on their lack of knowledge. And from the adjective ignorant, we naturally get the noun form.
Which is ignorance, the state of being ignorant.
Precisely. It's the noun. Example. He showed a remarkable ignorance of the facts.
Remarkable ignorance. Using remarkable there really stresses the degree of not knowing. It wasn't minor, it was significant. And again, we see ignorance of the facts.
Yes, that ignorance of structure is consistent. So you can describe a person as ignorant, adjective, or talk about the state itself as ignorance, noun. His ignorance led to mistakes. It's the difference between describing the person and describing the condition.
Got it. Okay, moving to neglect. This one's interesting because it can be a noun or a verb.
That's right. Let's look at the verb first. Your example uses the passive voice. The buildings had been neglected for years.
Had been neglected. Okay, so someone failed to care for them. For buildings, neglected means...
Not maintained. Allowed to fall apart.
Exactly that. Not properly cared for, not maintained, leading to deterioration. It's a failure to provide the necessary attention.
Okay. Now, the authentic sentence uses neglect a bit differently, more abstractly. But intention is not to neglect social science.
Right. Social science isn't a building. So here, neglect means...
Failing to give it enough importance.
Right.
Or attention. Or resources, maybe.
Precisely. Failing to give it proper attention, consideration, or priority. In this academic or policy context, neglecting social science means not valuing it enough, not funding it, not focusing on it.
So the sentence is saying the opposite, the intention is to give it attention.
Exactly. It's stating a positive intention by negating the negative action. We intend not to disregard social science. It highlights how neglect applies both to physical care and to abstract importance or attention.
That's a key distinction. Same word, but the meaning shifts depending on what's being neglected. And you mentioned it can be a noun too. Yes. We don't have a noun example in the source, but you could talk about years of neglect causing the building's decay, or maybe a feeling of neglect if someone isn't getting enough attention. The noun refers to the state of being neglected or the lack of care itself.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, there's an important adjective derived from neglect.
Yes, negligible.
Negligible. This is one where the connection to neglect really helps unlock the meaning.
It does. Context is key, as always. The example is, the company says the cost of relocation will be negligible.
So if a cost is negligible, it means it's really small, unimportant. So small you can basically ignore it or neglect it.
Exactly. That's the connection. Something negligible is so small or insignificant that it can be safely disregarded or, well, neglected without serious consequence.
Like a negligible difference or a negligible impact.
Priestley, negligible risk, negligible amount. It signals that this factor isn't important. It's not the main point.
That's incredibly useful for reading comprehension. If you see negligible, you know you don't need to focus heavily on whatever it's describing. It's a signpost saying, this isn't the big issue.
It absolutely is. It directs your attention away from minor details. Understanding that root connection really strengthens your grasp.
Fantastic. Okay, that covers the ignoring and neglecting group. Let's shift gears. Now we're looking at words describing things that, well, bother us. Annoyance, irritation, even suffering.
Right. And first up is bother, listed as a verb. And interestingly, the examples show two quite different uses.
Yeah.
First, he doesn't bother much about his appearance.
Okay. Doesn't bother about his appearance. This sounds like he doesn't make much effort, or maybe doesn't care much about how he looks.
That's exactly right. Meaning, one, to make an effort, to concern oneself with something, often used with about or in the negative, don't bother to.
Okay. Now compare that to the authentic sentence. This brain drain has long bothered policymakers in poor countries.
Totally different feel, isn't it?
Yeah. The brain drain isn't making an effort about policymakers. Here, bothered must mean troubled them, worried them, annoyed them.
Exactly. Meaning, two, to cause trouble, worry, irritation, or difficulty to someone. The brain drain is a persistent problem for the policymakers.
So we have bother about something, meaning care or make effort, and something bothers someone, meaning it troubles or irritates them. How do you tell which is which when reading?
You look at the sentence structure.
Oh.
Who is doing the bothering and who or what is being bothered? If it's person bothers about X, it's usually meaning one. If it's thing issue bothers person, it's meaning two.
Like, don't bother me right now. That's meaning two, right? Don't annoy me.
Perfect example. The structure bother plus person, object, strongly points to the annoy trouble meaning. Context is everything.
Always comes back to context. Okay, next is annoy, another verb.
Yes, the example. He swatted a fly that was annoying him.
Classic annoying fly. So annoy means to irritate someone, make them a bit angry, often repeatedly.
Right. That persistent quality is often there. Now, the authentic sentence. The question of GDP and its usefulness has annoyed policymakers for over half a century.
Again, an abstract thing. The question is doing the annoying. Like with bother, it means this question has been a persistent source of irritation or difficulty for policymakers.
Exactly. It causes ongoing trouble or frustration. It overlaps a lot with that second meaning of bother.
So concepts or issues can annoy people just like flies can. It signals frustration. And the adjective form is?
Annoyed. feeling irritated or slightly angry. If something annoying happens, you feel annoyed. He felt annoyed by the constant questions.
Okay, now for the bore family. Bore the verb, bore the noun, boring, and bored. Let's start with bore as a verb.
The example for the verb is, I won't bore you with too many details.
Right. To bore someone is to make them feel tired and uninterested because something is dull or repetitive. Bore someone with something.
Precisely. And that leads directly to the adjective boring, which describes the thing that causes boredom.
Right. A boring lecture makes you feel.
Bored.
Yeah.
The adjective describing the feeling, I was bored.
Okay, verb bore, adjective boring describes the cause, adjective bored describes the feeling. Got it. Now, the source also includes tedious. How does that fit in?
Tedious. It's an adjective closely related to boring. Examples. The journey soon became tedious, and the joke became increasingly tedious.
So tedious means boring, but maybe with an extra layer, like long and repetitive.
That's often the implication, yes. Tedious suggests boredom arising specifically from length, repetition, or monotony. Something can be boring quickly, but tedious often implies it drags on. Think data entry, maybe.
Right. A long, dull task is tedious. A short, dull comment might just be boring. The examples soon became and increasingly also hint at that duration or repetition aspect.
Exactly. It gives a bit more information about why something is boring. Now, back to bore, it can also be a noun.
Right, the example. It's such a bore having to stay late this evening.
Here, a bore isn't a person, though it can be. It's the situation or task itself that's considered tiresome or dull. Doing X is a bore.
So the noun refers to the source of the boredom. You have to check the grammar to see if bore is the action verb or the tiresome thing, noun.
Correct. And just like tedious is the adjective, the noun form is tedium.
Tedium, meaning the state of being bored, especially from something long or repetitive.
Yes, the state or quality of being tedious. The sheer tedium of the wait. It connects that whole family.
Mm-hmm.
Bore, boring, bored, tedious, tedium.
Okay, that maps it out well. Last one in this annoyance suffering group. Agony.
Agony, a noun, and a strong one. Example, Jack collapsed in agony on the floor.
Yeah, that sounds intense. Agony means extreme pain, suffering.
Extreme physical or mental suffering, yes. It conveys a very high level of pain or distress.
So collapsing in agony means the pain was overwhelming, and the authentic sentence, modern medicine has prolonged the physical agony of dying.
Here, physical agony specifies the type of extreme suffering bodily pain, and prolonged tells us medicine has extended the duration of this suffering.
It's a powerful sentence. So encountering agony tells you immediately we're talking about severe suffering. Modifiers like physical or verbs like prolonged add crucial detail about its nature and duration.
Exactly. It signals intensity.
All right. We've covered ignoring, annoying, suffering. Now let's switch to deception and how we perceive things.
Okay, starting with cheat. Noun and verb forms, the noun examples. He's nothing but a liar and a fraud. And, are you accusing me of being a cheat?
So a cheat is a person who behaves dishonestly to get an advantage, right? Especially in games tests.
Exactly. It's the label for the person who does the action. Now, the verb in the authentic sentence. If you see a conversation as a fight or competition, you can win by cheating as long as you don't get caught.
Win by cheating. Here, cheating is the dishonest action used to win. It's breaking the rules for gain.
Correct. The core idea, whether noun or verb, is about unfairness, dishonesty, breaking rules for advantage. The sentence itself uses that interesting conditional structure, if you see X as Y, to explore a cynical viewpoint.
Yeah. Okay, related to cheat, but maybe more serious, is fraud.
Fraud, a noun. Example, she was charged with credit card fraud.
Fraud sounds more official, more criminal. Deception for financial gain.
That's generally it. Criminal deception, especially for financial or personal gain. Credit card fraud is a specific type. While cheat can be minor, fraud is usually serious, deliberate, often legal deception.
All right. Then we have the verb deceive. Multiple uses here, too. First, unless my eyes deceive me, that's his wife.
That specific phrase, unless X deceive me. It means unless my senses are misleading me. It expresses belief based on perception while acknowledging a tiny possibility of error.
Interesting. So it's about your senses potentially tricking you, not you tricking someone else.
In that phrase, yes. The eyes are the subject doing the deceiving. Now, example 2. You're deceiving yourself if you think he'll change his mind.
Deceiving yourself. That's self-delusion, right? Making yourself believe something false.
Exactly. Here, the subject and object are the same. You. So deceive can be about misleading others, being misled by your senses, or misleading yourself. You really need to look at who is deceiving whom.
Definitely. And the noun form is deception.
Right. Deception, the act of deceiving, or the state of being deceived, it was all an elaborate deception.
Okay. Now for perceive, another verb with different flavors. Example 1. I perceived a change in his behavior.
This perceive means noticed, detected, became aware of, often through senses or intuition. You became aware of the change.
So detecting something, often something observable. Now the authentic sentence. Look for cues about how others perceive you.
Here, perceive isn't about noticing your physical presence. It's about how others interpret you, understand you, regard you.
Exactly. It's about their mental interpretation, their opinion or impression of you, a very different meaning from just detecting a change.
Absolutely. If the object is something physical or sensory, a change, a sound, perceive means detect. If the object is a person, situation, or idea, you, the decision, perceive usually means interpret or understand. They perceived the threat. They understood the danger.
So you have to look at what is being perceived. That tells you whether it's detection or interpretation. Crucial difference.
Crucial. You have to be that language detective. Which brings us to conceive, maybe the trickiest one for multiple meanings.
Okay. Example 1. They conceived of a theory and stuck to it.
This means to form or devise an idea, a plan, a theory in the mind. Mental creation. Notice the structure conceive of something abstract.
So conceive of a theory, invent or formulate the theory. Intellectual birth.
Right. Now, the authentic sentence. Most parents of soccer fans would like to conceive their babies in spring.
Whoa, okay, completely different. Here, conceive obviously means become pregnant.
Exactly. Two totally separate meanings. The object is the key. Conceive of a theory, abstract often with of, versus conceive their babies, biological direct object.
You absolutely have to look at what follows the verb there. Wow. And the noun is conception.
Yes. And the example. Different people have different conceptions.
This conception links back to the conceive of meaning, right? It means an idea, an understanding.
Precisely. Different ideas or understandings. But just like the verb, the noun conception can also mean the biological process of becoming pregnant. So the noun itself has those two potential meanings too.
Okay, this whole section, cheat, fraud, deceive, perceive, conceive, really hammers home that context point. You cannot just know one definition for these words.
You really can't. Analyzing the sentence structure, the objects, the prepositions, that's the skill you need for complex text.
Absolutely vital. Okay, let's move to our next group. Idle moments and wandering. Words about inactivity or moving without a clear direction. First is idle.
Idle, adjective or verb. The example shows the adjective. She was bored with her idle life at home.
So idle here means inactive, not working, doing nothing purposeful. An idle life lacks activity.
Correct. It describes that state of inactivity. And the noun form is idleness. Example. You have spent your life in idleness.
Idleness is just the state of being idle, living without activity or purpose.
Right. The verb idle, though not in the examples, means to spend time doing nothing. Or for an engine to run slowly without load, like a car idling. All related to inactivity.
Okay. Next, adolescent. Noun and adjective.
The adjective example. He was showing off, as is the way with adolescent boys. In the authentic sentence. Chewing gum, once bought primarily by adolescent boys.
So adolescent as an adjective means relating to teenagers. Adolescent boys are teenage boys, describes the age group.
Exactly. And the noun in adolescent is simply a teenager. The period itself is adolescence.
Adolescence, the teenage years between childhood and adulthood.
Correct. So seeing adolescent or adolescence flags the specific age group or developmental stage being discussed. Important demographic info.
Okay, now for linger, the verb. Example 1. She lingered for a few minutes to talk to Nick.
Here, linger means to stay somewhere longer than necessary or expected. She hung around a bit longer to chat. Physical presence.
Staying put longer than planned. Okay, example 2. The Civil War lingered on well into the 1930s.
Here, lingered on means persisted, continued to exist slowly over a long time. The war didn't end abruptly, it dragged on. Conceptual persistence, not physical staying.
Ah, so physically staying versus conceptually persisting? How do we tell?
Look at the subject and any particles. Person-animal lingering in a place or for a time, usually physical. Event, feeling, smell lingering on or lingering in the air memory, usually persistence over time.
Like the doubt lingered. That's persistence of a feeling.
Perfect example. The subject and common phrases are your clues.
Got it. Next, wander. Also physical and mental possibilities. Example 1. She wandered aimlessly around the streets.
This is physical wander. Walking or moving without a specific purpose or direction. Aimless movement, usually with around, through, etc. Example 2. It's easy to be distracted and let your attention wander.
And this is mental wander. Your attention drifts, loses focus.
Exactly. Subject is key again. Person-animal wanders physically. Mid-attention thoughts wander mentally. Helps you know if it's about movement or focus.
Right. Identify what's doing the wandering. Okay. Last in this group, stroll. Noun or verb.
Verb example. People were strolling along the beach.
To stroll sounds relaxed. Walking slowly, leisurely.
Yes, exactly. Walking in a relaxed, unhurried, usually pleasant way. Often stroll along, stroll through.
And the noun, we went for a stroll in the park.
The stroll is a short, leisurely walk for pleasure. Go for a stroll.
So how does stroll compare to wander? Wandering can sound a bit lost or aimless, but strolling sounds pleasant.
That's the key difference. Stroll almost always has a positive, relaxed connotation. Wander's more neutral, could be pleasant, could be aimless, could even be lost. Stroll implies enjoyment and leisure. It sets a different mood.
That nuance is important for tone. Good distinction.
It is. Those subtle differences carry meaning.
Okay, final section for this deep dive. Joining and recruiting. Words about becoming part of groups, lists, organizations. First, enroll or enroll.
A verb with those two common spellings. Example. You need to enroll before the end of August.
To enroll means to officially sign up, right?
Right.
Register for a course or institution.
Exactly. To officially register as a member, formal joining.
And the authentic sentence. Mr. Roth has 3 community college students enrolled in a work placement program.
Shows the typical structure. Enrolled in program, course, institution. They officially join that program.
So enroll in tells you they've formally become part of something structured, usually educational or work-related.
Correct. Now, recruit, noun or verb.
Verb example. They recruited several new members to the club.
To recruit is the action of finding and persuading people to join. Actively seeking new members for a group, company, army, etc. Usually recruit someone to group.
And the person who does this is a recruiter.
Yes. And recruit can also be a noun for the person who has just been recruited. The new recruits started today.
Makes sense. So recruiting often comes before enrolling or registering. It's the search part.
Often, yes. Recruitment leads to enrollment or registration, which brings us to register, also noun and verb.
Noun example. The bride and groom signed the register.
Here, the register is the official book or list where names or events are recorded. A marriage register, guest register, etc.
Got it. And the verb in the authentic sentence. They argue that all internet users should be forced to register and identify themselves.
To register is a verb. Put your name and details on an official list or database. Here, it's getting on a list of internet users.
And that structure should be forced to register is interesting. It implies it's not voluntary.
Exactly. It highlights an imposed obligation. And the noun from the verb register is registration.
Registration, the act or process. Online registration is now open.
Right. So quick comparison. Register versus enroll. How are they different?
Register seems broader, like putting your name on any official list, voters, website users, conference attendees.
Really? Yeah.
Whereas enroll feels more specific to joining something like a school, a course, a university program.
That's a very good way to put it. Enroll often implies becoming part of an institution or structured program, maybe with a deeper commitment. Register can simply be getting your name onto a list. There's overlap. You might register for a short course, but enroll usually suggests something more substantial.
Okay, that clarifies the nuance. Register, listing, enroll, formally joining a program institution. Useful distinction.
It is. Helps you choose the right word or understand the context better.
Wow. Okay, that really was a deep dive through Day 5, Part 2. We went from ignoring and neglecting through annoyance and agony, tackled deception and perception, wandered through idleness, and ended up joining and recruiting.
Quite the journey.
Seeing how these words behave in different sentences, especially those authentic examples, it just brings them to life, doesn't it?
It really does. It moves beyond just a definition on a page. Analyzing them in context builds that stronger, more flexible understanding you need. It's not just for the exam. It makes you a better reader, period.
So here's something to chew on. Think about those words with really distinct multiple meanings, like bother, perceive, conceive was a big one, linger, wander. We saw how just looking at the words around them completely flips the meaning. How does really focusing on that skill spotting context clues change how you read challenging texts?
It's fundamental, isn't it? It shifts you from just recognizing words to actively interpreting meaning. You become, as you said earlier, a kind of detective, always looking for clues.
A language detective. I like that.
It's about critical engagement with the text.
Exactly. So for everyone listening, what stood out to you today? Was there a word, an example, a distinction that made you go, aha? Let us know. Share your aha moment, or maybe a sentence where you've seen one of these words used. Your thoughts help everyone else listening too.
Yeah, definitely share those insights.
Thank you so much for bringing this material and diving deep with us today. Keep practicing, keep reading those complex texts, keep building that mental network of words, and we'll be right here for the next deep dive.
Looking forward to it. See you next time.